Alright everybody, welcome into it. So we're doing another ranking video finally, and this time is Our Lady Peace, seminal post-grunge band from Canada, of course, and found most of its success in the 90s, mid to late 90s, and also the early 2000s. They had much success with especially their second record, and it went diamond in Canada, and I think platinum in the States it eventually reached, and then they had some kind of more mainstream pop success in the early 2000s. They're still a big concert draw, they still have a lot of fans across the land, and this is kind of in celebration of their new album, which came out at the start of the year, and it came out on NFT even before people had early access to that. I didn't hear it till it hit streaming, of course, and finally this month the physical copies are being shipped out, probably right now actually. And that new album is Spiritual Machines 2. It follows up the original Spiritual Machines 20 years later. So we are going to count down the 10 studio albums from this band, and 10 studio albums and 1 live album. So, apologies, I don't have a lot of copies of these guys, because I kind of fell off for a while, and then I kind of was catching back up around the time Curve came out. So number 11 is going to be Burn Burn, which is the only Our Lady Peace album where it doesn't really have anything for me specifically. There's probably some people that do like this one. I find its brevity, it just never catches you, like it never hooks you. And even the single, there was one big single and one single that didn't really go anyplace, but they didn't even hook me. I remember I was out camping with a buddy, and Burn Burn came out probably about '09 or so, and we were listening to the radio a lot on our camping trip, and every hour or two the radio station, as they do in Canada, would play the new Our Lady Peace, because anytime they have a new record out, that's how it goes. And it was, all you did was save my life. And he goes, "Oh, you like Our Lady Peace?" And at the time I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not really proud to say it right now. But yeah, if you like the record, that's totally cool, but I have never really had much love for Burn Burn. It's also, I believe, the shortest Our Lady Peace record, but even still, it feels too long, and all the other ones at least have something I like about them. Number 10 is going to be The Somethingness, which up till recently was the newest record, and a horrible name for record. These tracks, a lot of them came out on an EP prior to the record, and I chose not to include the EP because it's basically just a bunch of tracks that made it onto the record in the end, so it'd be kind of like repetitious. Head Down is a pretty good opener, and Last Train is pretty cool, closer. And, it's decent. It's definitely Our Lady Peace. It's kind of missing the bite that they had back in the 90s and in their heyday. And, you really miss Jeremy as drummer for this one. Of course, the seminal lineup that most people, know and love from OLP is Raine, Mike Turner, Duncan Coots, and Jeremy Taggart. And, or maybe they know the Steve Mazer on guitar, because Mike was only on for the first 4 records. But yeah, here it's Jason Pierce on drums. Don't confuse him with the guy from Spaceman 3 and Spiritualized. And it just doesn't have as much of an identity or a bite. It doesn't sound like that classic OLP sound. But some of it's decent. It's a pretty average record. I remember I put this one on and I was playing an old school like PlayStation racing game, and just listening to OLP at all at that time when this came out kind of filled me with nostalgia, but at the same time it just made me want to go back and listen to their, classic albums again. But decent record, but I think Our Lady Peace is trying too hard to be U2, and you're missing that manic Raine obviously he doesn't have the range as he grows older, but I don't know, they just sound a little bit castrated. They sound like they're trying to be latter day U2 or something. Number 9 is going to be the extremely political and a little bit heavy-handed Healthy and Parallel Times, or Paranoid Times, rather. And this one, I mean, it's a pretty bloated record. It took them a long time to make. It's a little too labored over. There's some good moments on it. I think the second single, Angels Losing Sleep, that's a pretty good one for sure. Yeah, it's a little too bloated. I appreciate some of the messages they're trying to go for, but at the same time, it's a little heavy-handed, like I said. And really, I don't know if we really need that. I mean, you can't sing about hating yourself all your life because you grow up into a man and elder statesman of rock. So you can't really sing all those paranoid tunes that you sang early in your career. But I don't think this was the right move, really. And I didn't much care for it when it came out. I can find a couple songs I really like off it. And I know some people that really like it. When it was reissued on vinyl recently, there were a lot of people clamoring to get it. And if it wasn't so pricey, I probably would have bought it myself. So number 8 is going to be the live record, and I think the live record really shines a light on how good a lot of the songs off Gravity could have been. And I really like those songs played in a kind of down and dirty style. Gravity is a little too clean production, a little too poppy, I guess, for better or for worse. And I think that songs like Not Enough and All For You work a lot better in the live setting and could have been a lot better if they were given better production or less clean, I think. So I think it was Bob Rock they worked with, and it worked for them because Somewhere Out There was maybe their biggest hit in the States at the time and really brought a lot of fans over. People were playing them on pop radio, and so a lot of young kids that didn't know them from their first 4 albums were now jumping on the bandwagon. So it kind of worked in that regard. I think I've said it before, but I'm not a big fan of Innocent at all. I think it's too schmaltzy, and I know that Raine was probably trying to write a song that everyone could sing along to live, but and I guess that works. But yeah, that might be one of my least favorite or my least favorite OLP songs. But yeah, anyway, I'm talking about the live album while I'm kind of talking about Gravity now. But I think that live does shine a light on how good songs like Not Enough could really be, and I like the down and dirty live versions. But having said that, I think a lot of the other songs that were classics sometimes get a little sloppy, and it's between, having a new guitarist playing Mike's old songs, but I think the problem is Raine, and he does have a hard time, hitting some of those notes live. He's more of a studio singer, I hate to say, but it's completely true. He can be kind of sloppy live sometimes. And all those great standout moments on, a record as like Clumsy, that paranoid sounding, shrill, Billy Corgan-esque voice that he uses sometimes doesn't work live so much, Car Crash is one of the coolest songs ever, but I'm not sure if I would want to see them perform it live. I'm not sure. Maybe back in like the late 90s or so. Anyway, I digress. Number 7, having kind of talked about it in that entry with the live album companion piece, is going to be Gravity. And yeah, I didn't buy a copy of this when it came out. I kind of fell off the bandwagon for a little bit. I definitely heard it, and it does have some good songs. I mean, All For You was a good song, good opener. Somewhere Out There, I think I liked it, and then it was way too overplayed, and then when I heard it 10 years later at a party, I thought, this is a great song. I don't think I'd put it in my top 10 OLP songs, but it's a great single, it's a great song. It definitely shows a shift in Raine's writing and what the band's sound was going to evolve into, for better or for worse, but yeah, All For You, Somewhere Out There, those are great songs. Not Enough. Made of Steel's pretty fun, I guess. So yeah, there's some good stuff on it. The production is too clean for this band, and then they would kind of go more and more in that era and spend most of the rest of their career trying to ape U2, which I think was a big mistake because then they kind of lost their identity a little bit. But it's not all bad. I sound like I'm dogging it, but there's some good stuff on this record, and most of the stuff is better than anything I could ever write. Except Innocent. I don't really like that one very much, like I said. But if you do, hey, that's cool. I don't like how it's written or sung or produced or anything. Number 6 is going to be Curve, and I will say that when Curve came out, it kind of reignited my interest in the band. It's nowhere near a perfect album at all, but it has some really cool songs on it. I really like the opener. I think that's an interesting song. And I really like Heavyweight. That's what kind of brought me back, is hearing that as a single. And it wasn't a huge hit. I'm sure it got played on the radio. I wasn't really listening by the time Curve came out, but I was just happy OLP were back. You know, it ended up being the last album with Jeremy, who I think really, other than Raine, Jeremy is really what gave the band their identity. His drumming, he's one of the best Canadian drummers, of course. If Rush didn't exist, I would probably put him in the highest echelon. But yeah, great drummer. Yeah, Curve is a decent record for sure. And I'll have to get a copy one day. Number 5 is going to be Spiritual Machines 2. And this has been a very contentious record. And the first time I listened to it, I thought, it's decent. It's obviously no Spiritual Machines 1. You know, a lot of time has passed. Mike Turner's gone. Jeremy's gone. So it's a lot more electronic, which kind of makes sense because they're kind of trying to appeal to the more contemporary audience. I totally get that. I know a lot of fans were kind of upset, and some people said they shouldn't have put Spiritual Machines on if it's not gonna sound like Spiritual Machines. But it really brings the concept back, and you know, shows us where, you know, the predictions were in 2001 for where we would be 20 years later, and you know, what they got right and what they got wrong. And conceptually very interesting. The new tour is going to really circle around that and be all about the age of spiritual machines. And I really should read that book because it's all based on the age of spiritual machines. And that author is very involved, especially in that first one. But they still do the whole voiceovers with him in this one. And that first single was really contentious. I thought it had a good message, was catchy. I mean, a lot of people don't like that they got another vocalist on there with Raine from Pussy Riot. But I thought it was pretty good, and I think there's some songs even better on there. Run is cool. Holes, I don't have the track listing next to me. I think a lot of the songs in the latter half of the record are better than the ones in the first half, which is always a nice thing, especially on a rock record where some of them are really front-loaded. But I was really happy with this, and it's my favorite OLP record since Spiritual Machines 1, and that was so long ago. But like I said again, it's very contentious. Some people really didn't like it, and you know, that's fair. It's definitely a different sound, but I think it's the best record they made since Spiritual Machines 1, so that's why it's number 5. I was really happy with it, and after Curve, I'm glad that, you know, they've found their footing again, because Curve, like I said, reignited my interest, and then Somethingness, I still listened to it, but I didn't think it was that great. Like I said, average to decent the whole way, but yeah, it's great to have them back in some capacity. Still missing Jeremy though, and Mike Turner does make a appearance on the record, so that's kind of interesting, right? So I guess they're on better terms than they were 20 years ago. Number 4, now we're getting into the real classics, and I do kind of agree with the general populace on OLP. I know sometimes I'm kind of a contrarian, which ruffles people's feathers, and but you like what you like. Like, I can't stress that enough with people. Number 4 is Naveed, which is, you know, their debut, of course, and, you know, I know this is a lot of people's favorite, and I really, really like it, but I will say I don't find it as consistent as the 3 that I'm about to show. But some people go, oh, this is way more consistent than Happiness. And like I said, it's personal preference, rather. This has a lot of hits on it. It's got the Birdman, of course, which is great. Great opener. I miss when bands would put a 5-minute opener. Now everyone's so, you know, Spotify playlist oriented, and you know, that, oh, they'll lose interest if the song's too long. We gotta make it 3 minutes, so the radio will play it. Starseed is amazing. A lot of people's introduction to the band. Naveed, wow, like, yeah, these are great songs, and you know, you can feel Raine's passion and anger and paranoia, and you know, that would be even like next level on the next album after this, and Hope's a really nice one. Super Satellite. Um, it does lose its footing a little bit as it goes on, but it's still, for me, this is still a solid 4 out of 5, and even the weaker songs are still really good and listenable. There's a hole punched in that one. Now I got them out of order all of a sudden. So number 3 is going to be the original Spiritual Machines. This album is all thanks to Raine and Mike Turner, so it makes it all the more heartbreaking that the band voted him out. And there was even something said like, we needed a more experienced guitarist, and we needed a guitarist that could play where we wanted our songs to go. And it's like, but Mike's a great guitarist, and he's got a more individual style than Steve. No disrespect to him, but Mike was where it's at for this band. Like, this wasn't the founding members, as it were, but this was the classic lineup, and it was the fourth and last record they made with the classic lineup. Right Behind You is very catchy. In Repair was such a good single, and I really liked it when it came out, even though I was probably only like 11 or 12 or 13, and I didn't quite understand the concept, but I still appreciated the song and the art. Some of their best songs are on here, actually. Middle of Yesterday and Everyone's a Junkie are two of my all-time favorites, even though they're kind of selected as deep cuts. Are You Sad, of course. All My Friends, If You Believe. Those are all kind of heartbreaking songs. Life is the low light, in my opinion. It's kind of getting into the era where Innocence is, where I find it a little bit schmaltzy, but I still like it, and it's not when I play on playlists and that, but when I listen to the record, it makes sense conceptually. It fits in well with the track listing. So even my least favorite song is good. Like, this is another solid 4, maybe moving up to 4.5. I really like this one. And I didn't all the way get it when I was a kid. Like I said, I bought it, I listened to it, I probably copied In Repair, Right Behind You, Middle of Yesterday, and Everyone's a Junkie onto my computer and burned it on a CD with a bunch of other songs, and then I sold it. And then a couple years later, I realized what a bad mistake I did. I only did that a couple times. I did it with a Perfect Circle album, too, which is kind of sacrilegious to say now. But, yeah. Then I realized my mistake, and it's been one of my favorites ever since, actually. And Made to Heal, oh my god. That song, wow. That one makes me so happy. I don't know. There's something about that song. And then I was really torn on this, but number 2 is going to be Happiness Is Not a Fish You Can Catch. And this was how I discovered the band. One Man Army was played on Much Music all the time, and that's still my favorite song. I probably overplayed it to death, but it's still my favorite song from this group, and I mean, it's so rockin'. I love the lyrics. I can relate to a lot of these lyrics on this album. Thief is absolutely devastating. The subject matter, the composition, that's one of their crowning achievements. If I was laying on my deathbed and I wrote a song like that, I would leave this world so happy that I contributed a work of art like that song. And then you got, the big single, Is Anybody Home? Those 3 I mentioned were all big singles in Canada, at least. Happiness and the Fish, the almost title track, is another complete highlight. Lying Awake, I like that one a lot. Stealing Babies, I didn't know who Elvin Jones was when I was really young, because I didn't know jazz music, but as I grew up, I really appreciated, how did this band get Elvin Jones to play with them? That's awesome. Like, obviously, I guess they like their jazz, but I don't see how they would say, hey, Elvin, you played on all these legendary jazz records and with Coltrane and everything. How do you want to be on this, rock record or pop rock record of this Canadian band? And, yeah, I didn't know who he was or what he was contributing when I was, I probably bought this when I was 11, I guess. And then when I grew up and realized who he was, and that whole last part and the busy drums, and I mean, that's another one of their best songs. And, that's obviously an underrated one because it's right at the end and a lot of people don't know it. And this album sold really well, but it didn't sell as well as this one, which is going to be my number 1. And this is the one that kind of made them, Naveed was huge, but this kind of made them a household name in Canada, and it did quite well in the States too, on the strength of Clumsy and Superman's Dead, which they shot 2 separate videos for. There's a Canadian version and a US version. Automatic Flowers was a big one, which is so funny that it didn't make it on the greatest hits there. Like, how could you not put that song on? And then 4am, which, you know, when I was 11 and I bought Happiness and then went back and bought this and was blown away by it, but I didn't get 4am. I thought, oh, this song's kind of slow. And then this is so bad to say, I'd skip ahead to Shaking and be like, oh, there we go, we're rocking out again. But 4am is one of the crowning achievements. It's like Thief. It's top 10 for sure from this band. It's quite devastating. It really paints a picture, kind of a strained relationship against a father and a son. And yeah, I'm so glad I don't really relate to it anymore, because my father and I have become such good friends in that. But I still so get the message, and the song really hits me. And then we also have Car Crash, which, again, like Stealing Babies, one of the best closers ever. Devastating, paranoid, sad, so much emotion in Raine's vocals. If you're not a fan of his vocals, you'll find this the most annoying performance ever. But if you like OLP and you like the vocals of early OLP, this will probably be one of the highlights, as it is for me. And all the deep cuts and songs that don't get much mention anymore, like Let You Down, Hello Oscar, Story of 100 Isles, those are all classic too. There is no way you can skip these songs unless you really don't like OLP, but it's so good. The production by Arnold Lanni, which he worked on this, and the record I just talked about, Happiness, and he worked with Finger 11 on Tip. The production is so good and so fitting for this band and this sound that they were going for. There they all are. They're so young back then. They're kids. Jeremy didn't have his, like, semi-afro, and yeah, such a good record. Back when they put the old dude on all the album covers for the first few albums. So anyway, tell me your favorite OLP records, or you can rank them, and also tell me your favorite tracks. And yeah, I'm gonna finally see this band soon. I'm sad that Jeremy's not with the band anymore, but it's cool that after all these years and, what is it, 24 years of being a fan, I'll finally get to see them live. So yeah, Spiritual Machines is still upon us with this new record finally out. It's out on NFT, it's out on streaming. I'm not an NFT guy, but like, they market it that way. Like, you can get it on NFT. You can listen to it a month before all those suckers that, you know, that only stream or they only have physical copies. But now the LP's hitting the stores. You can get a physical copy. I got the CD in the mail, of course. I only have one LP, sadly, and it's this one behind me here. I only have one LP from OLP. But Clumsy is definitely one to get, because it's a Canadian classic right there, right? Anyway, ramble on, ramble on. Thanks so much for watching. We got lots of content coming up, and enjoy your day. Peace and love, everybody.